All right, when using the disc sander, when I turn this on, the disc will spin from right to left, and it will be picking up here and putting down here. Now, what's important about that is if I push my block into this side, it will lift up and it will fly into my face, whereas if I push it on this side, it's going to be holding it against the table at this point. So make sure you sand on the downside of the disc. Make sure you're only sanding on this side. Also, if you know about spinning, if I was to put something very close to the center, it's not spinning very fast at this point, and there's not a lot of coverage on that disc, and so if I hold something against it at that point, it will burn very fast. So another key thing about using the disc sander is I need to constantly be moving my piece back and forth. If I hold it in one spot, the material from the wood that I'm sanding will clog up the disc, and it will also heat up, which will, both of them will create a burn mark in my material. So I need to make sure that I'm constantly moving it. Key thing that I like to say is hold tight, push light. And that means hold tight onto my block and push lightly into here. If you get those two confused, if you hold it really light and you push it hard, more often than not, it will take it out of your hands, or it will at least put a burn mark on there. This machine is not for taking off material, it is for sanding. If you need to take off material, take it back to the bandsaw or whatever machine you need to take it. It's for sanding lightly. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on now and show you what it looks like to sand it incorrectly. If you also notice, this disc has a brake on it, so it automatically slows down and stops as soon as I turn the machine off, which is really handy. As you see, when I push it in there, it has enough force to lift it up and take it away. I've seen a lot of students that push it in there accidentally, and the piece leaves, but they're still pushing and they run their fingers right into it. Now I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. And again, remember, I'm holding it tight and I'm pushing it lightly. Next thing I'm going to cover is the belt sander. If I was to turn this on and sand something on the upward stroke, all that dust is going to fly into my face, and also there is a potential kickback place as I am pushing down into it and it's coming up. If I rotate my surface just enough, it will catch and actually throw that. So whenever you sand, you need to make sure that it's sanding away from your project. Never push your project into the sander. Always away so that I can lift it up and down. If I was to push it in this way, it will sand until I get to a pinch point, and at this point, there is the potential for it to grab and shove and kick back into my hand, and I'll show that in just a second. As you can see from the video, I can sand as much as I want while it's pulling away and there's no pressure on my piece. But as soon as there is a pinch point and it's pushing in against my hand, it creates a point that it can rotate off of and take it out of my hand. So this machine you can get your hands pretty close to and it will still be safe as long as you hold tight and push very lightly. Again, if you start pushing into it, this machine is only meant to sand, it's not meant to take off large amounts of material. So if you're pushing into it fast, it will grab your piece and take it away, and you'll end up pushing your fingers directly into the sandpaper, which makes for red sandpaper. Not a good idea. Another thing I'm going to mention Now, we talked about this on the disc sander, but if I was to hold my piece in one spot, the dust that's getting taken off here will get taken around, and there'll be remnants still in the sandpaper as it comes back around. And so if I hold it continuously in that spot, it will build up and will heat up and burn my project. So I need to continuously move my piece back and forth. There is the potential of a little divot right here where this wheel comes around, and that there is not a table under this spot. And so if I was to hold my piece right here, there is one edge that does not have the same pressure on top of this piece or underneath this piece right here. And if I push down right here, it will sand up here and it'll sand down here, but this middle spot will not sand as much. So if I'm sanding a flat surface, I need to make sure I'm doing it back here in this position. If your piece was to fly out of your hands, your fingers, when they do come in contact with this sandpaper, it will burn them, as it will burn your fingers as well as potentially cutting through. So you need to remember that you're going to be cauterized if you end up touching this. If you use a sharp corner and dig into the sandpaper, I have had a place where when this line comes around, it has grabbed on an old belt and stripped it. And fortunately, what happens is in about 10 years of belt not breaking and then one finally breaks, what happens is there's a whole bunch of dust inside this machine that's caked. And when this unravels, it will go through that whole machine and it will take all that extra dust and it'll come out and it will blow it up in a big dust storm. And you're going to turn into the Sandman. So if you see any holes show up in this piece, be sure and let your instructor know, or tell your worst enemy to go use the machine at that point. I'm going to do one more demonstration showing how to use the end of this machine. However, if I push into it, it has the ability to want to fly up into my face.